there are more robust than ever. I think it's a matter of being able to capitalize on those opportunities. And then the other thing that I can say about that is that the more individuals that you get involved in understanding your core principles and that they're enthusiastic about sticking to those core principles, they will bring in the members for you. It's not a matter of you having to hunt them down. You will have them knocking at your door.
Wait. Yes, ma'am.
Just to add to that, with the New York chapter, with the Facebook thing that we just opened, like people from like 15 years ago who are just now joining. So I also think that sustainability is going to be easier as it goes on, because 5 years from now, even if I'm not living in New York, I know that I can go online and find what the alumni chapter was, which makes life a lot easier for us. I think the trouble right now is finding the old people to get them into the fold. But as soon as we do, like I found, we had a couple people add us from 10 years ago, and they told all of their alumni who they still keep in touch with, because they're still friends with the people they did JET with. And so all of a sudden we had like 15 new people that were from 10 years ago that didn't.
Great point. Great point. In the back of the room.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about not only contacting alumni, but also visibility. And I know a number of our chapters have newsletters, some online, some in print, and various degrees of frequency. And then many of us have websites where we also post information. And so I guess my question is what suggestions could you offer us in terms of the comment that you made about that our failure would be in our alumni not knowing things are happening? How could we improve our visibility with these members? Say, for example, the groups like here in Seattle, a lot of our events happen in Seattle, while there's a sub-chapter in Spokane. What do we do to all those? I mean, we're losing a number of people who live an hour, 2 hours away, obviously. But we still want to let them know that these things are happening. But within Seattle, we've got a number of members who don't participate, and we wonder, do they know about it? So that's my question. What can we do in terms of improving our visibility?
Well, what alumni associations have done on this is they've done a front-end investment. So they've done what we talked about earlier. They found the people. And then they've spent some money and they've done an initial communication with the device that they have confidence is reaching every individual that they have an address for. And that's a more expensive mailing that has a return address component with the post office to identify if the address is bad, kind of like a certified mailing. And usually what it is, it's a singular newsletter. For the university, it would be an alumni magazine that has a special wrap on the magazine. And that wrap on the magazine would have a notice that says, we haven't talked to you in a while. We're very interested in making sure that you're aware of the efforts of our organization. We want to ensure that you are receiving, so forth and so on. And so it's like a census that goes out that gathers a benchmark data point. That's really the only way that you can do it if you don't have confidence that your other systems are reaching everyone. At the end of the day, the permanent mail address effort, from my understanding, is pretty much the only way that you can do that. And you have to do it in a way that you're spending some money, you're mailing to all 55,000 of these people with a return device that connects them. We call that the census. So for example, the University of Washington just completed a $2.5 billion capital campaign a couple of weeks ago. And what we did 8 years ago is we did a census where we did a mailing to every Husky alum we had an address for, to benchmark that data, to check in with them, to make sure that what we knew about them is what they wanted us to know about them, and then we moved on from there. So I think that's really the only technique you can do.
Let me add a little bit to that. I think that when I left JET in '99, I remember hearing about the JET Alumni program, that there was something, and that's about it. I didn't really hear about what the JET Alumni program could do for me, what I could get involved with, and understanding the power of that brand. I think that power of having a positive brand impression is so important. And I think that can only be developed with a network of individuals trying to work towards the same goals as JET is, and being able to utilize that JET brand to get people involved. How many of you would say that you had a really positive experience with the JET program? So why wouldn't you get involved with the JET Alumni Association? Use the power of that brand to be able to bring folks in. And that might be through communications vehicles such as Paul was talking about. But I think that you got to get people enthusiastic about looking at it at the first place. We can send columns to every single Columns is our alumni magazine, to every single mailbox across the nation. But unless people are interested in reading it, it's not going to do us a darn bit of good.
That's right. And, you know, similar to what we do with students, we're promoting the Alumni Association to students before they even arrive on campus. So you need to be promoting the JET Alumni Association the moment that the JET members are accepted to participate in the program.
So my question then goes back to the response rate, which, I mean, New York right now is looking at kind of doing a membership survey as well. And we also know from past experiences, even though the information gets out there, it's not necessarily read. People will ask us questions about,
Sure.
Why don't you guys do this? And we think, we did do that. Didn't you read the newsletter? You know, so when you do a large mailing like that, what is sort of a reasonable expectation on the percentage of responses, or what's sort of a success? Because it feels like, you know, we may send out, you know, 1,200 requests and maybe we'll get 50 back. I mean, is that good? Is that bad?
There's no set answer to that. I think that the answer is the response rate's going to be proportional to the level of affinity investment that they had in their experience. 300,000 Husky alums, if we do a mailing and I get 1 or 2% back, okay. The JET experience is such an intimate and intense experience, I would think that your response rate would be higher, quite a bit higher. I think what you want to look at, however, is where do you ask them to channel that response? Is it back to the chapter rep? Is it back to a national organization? You need to make it relevant for their personal experience.
One thing I've been experimenting with is, in terms of retention, is subgroups. So I set up something called the Writers, Interpreters, Translators subgroup. I've been reaching out to JET alums sort of around the country and also abroad, anybody who has an interest in any of those three things, and it's pulling people. I'm always trying to pull people out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And then Clara Solomon, I talked with her. She works in career services for NYU Law, and she set up a subgroup recently to get people who work in student services, so international student exchange. So that's just getting started, and I think that's a good way. It's sort of a across the grade kind of way to pull in people and get people involved in other ways. So it's sort of not chapter based, but you know.
But interest-based.
Yeah,
interest-based, very much so.
Somebody with an interest to sort of organize a Yahoo group or something like that, and that, I think that's good. And then if you keep in touch with people, you find it pulls the people out who are established in something and keeps them sort of in the loop and gets them helping other people, and also adds credibility and a certain amount of cachet. You know, because there's some JET alum authors out there who are very well established, and books out there, and we should be, you know, that's good for cachet. It's also, you know, good to have them as a resource.
I think that's a great point, and I think that is a fabulous program. And, you know, what I would suggest is if there is a common experience that a JET alumni would face, if every chapter were to be able to create something to that effect, then you have a set of norms that is your brand. You have something that people can expect to be a part of once they come back into the U.S. Right now, you know, or back in '98 anyway, I couldn't say that I was coming back to, well, back then it was Colorado, going back to Colorado knowing what the expectations are and what the experience would be. So I think that it's a great point that you need to create those sustainable programs, but do that nationwide.
I just wanted to say one more thing about the visibility question, and piggyback on Paul's response. If you don't want to do a certified mailing, which he mentioned was expensive, we use a system called iContact. It's basically an email database. So we can track who is opening our emails. We can track every email that's opened, what links people clicked on, and, you know, just get numbers like that. So if you're saying, okay, we're throwing information out there, how do we figure out who's actually getting it? That's a great way to do it, and it costs us like $10 a month.
That's right.
To run this.
And again, you're right. Think about your demographics. Class of '86. I mean, you're talking about people that are still at ages that are very internet fluent. I mean, the University of Washington, I probably have 150,000 people that are over 60. So the challenges around the demographics of my cohort are very different than yours. I would think the internet would be a much more viable alternative. Good questions. Other questions? This is good. Other thoughts? Yes, in the back.
Just, you know, commenting on what you had, you know, what you just said about, you have really older alumni as well as, you know, kids probably right out of school, but what kind of, like, activities do you do to, like, you know, get both of those groups in between ages?
That's a It's a good question. So what activities do we use to engage different